Aloha, this is Patrick. You're at my channel, Recovery Conversations. Thanks for being here. So today I'm super excited to introduce to you Jeff Munn. Had a great conversation with him that I'll try to present to you in 3 parts. This is a conversation focused on his book, Staying Sober Without God. I encourage you to go out and get it. The cool thing about Jeff's work is it's a very practical approach to the 12 steps. So there's no faith required, no higher power concepts required. And what's even better is you can still have those things in your recovery journey. They're just not necessary to implement practical approaches to recovery. So I hope you enjoy the beginning of this conversation, and I'll check back with you right at the end. Mahalo. Afternoon, everyone. This is Patrick with Recovery Conversations. I have to share something with you. When I started this project, I had a short list of people. I thought, if these people showed up on my channel, it would be amazing. It was a very short list. I emailed a bunch of people, not thinking I'd ever hear from them. And lo and behold, Jeff Munn, my guest today, reached out and said, sure, happy to help. So this is an honor beyond belief for me, and I'm thrilled to share it with everybody. Jeff, thank you for taking time out of your day.
Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Many people listening will understand when I say this. When you first read the big book, there's a connection that's pretty powerful. Like, man, how does this person 100 years ago know my story? It's that powerful. And when I read your book, I had the same exact kind of response. The things that you pointed out about 12-step recovery and how it works and doesn't work for certain people is exactly the things that I found myself saying and identifying with. So I'm going to read a paragraph out of your book, Staying Sober Without God, and take it from there. I've spent many years in 12-step programs. I've worked with addicts, alcoholics, and codependents of all types in both the 12-step world and in my work as a psychotherapist. There is no doubt that faith and spirituality can play a tremendous role in the recovery of many people, but I have come to believe that it is not only unnecessary, but potentially harmful when imposed on recovering addicts for whom a faith-based approach is not a good fit. That's a strong statement to make, and I'd love to know more about that. So has your perspective on that changed since you wrote it, or what's your experience that brought you to that point?
No, it hasn't changed particularly. I think maybe I've refined it and fine-tuned a little bit how I talk about it and how I present it. But I'm not trying to say in any capacity that belief in a higher power is detrimental, just in and of itself. As with any treatment, as with any remedy for an issue, if the incorrect remedy for that person's particular issue is used, it can be harmful. And so that's just how I see forcing a certain type of solution on somebody for whom it's not a good fit. In the field of medicine, if you give somebody the wrong medicine for an illness, you can cause incredible harm, even if the medicine itself is good for other people and works in other situations. So it's about the fit. And if it's not a good fit for that person, and this person is being consistently told, no, you have to do it this way, and this is what you need to get better, it can be potentially harmful. And I still believe that to be true. And that was evidenced for me. Again, I don't have double-blind, placebo-controlled studies to prove this, but in my experience, I saw a lot of people come into my practice who were either turned off of the 12-step program or didn't even want to touch it in the first place because of how focused it was on God, and they'll say higher power, other forms of, sort of a supernatural being or, but really the first thing you see in there is God when you read the 12 steps, God, 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 God. So
at some point in your recovery, you're self-described as a person in recovery. Oftentimes when people have their issues with recovery programs, the answer is I'll do something else or I won't do anything. Your answer, however, was not only am I going to do something else, I'm gonna make it available to a lot of other people. I'm going to publish a book. So if you don't mind, like talk to us about what was going on in your recovery journey at the time when you said, I need to do something different.
I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater,
Hmm.
so to speak. And I had gotten some pretty solid recovery, made some good connections, um, developed some habits, and internalized some principles for living that were really useful to me,
Hmm.
based on the traditional 12-step approach. And so, it didn't make sense to me to just be like, oh, screw this whole thing. I don't like this part of it. And so, it's not for me. Um, I was in the fortunate position to be in graduate school, uh, earning my master's in psychology when I sort of went through got back into the program. And it just made more sense to me than it had before, because I was able to use sort of these psychological and, call them whatever you want, practical common sense terms to define the phenomena that people were talking about, and framing in a spiritual light. So it made sense to me, and I felt like there was a way that I could articulate it to myself, that made it so that when I went to meetings and heard some of the more dogmatic religious language, I was able to kind of, navigate through it in a way that made sense to me. And it was so clear to me that I was like, I feel like I have sort of a book in me about this. Like, I feel like I could really reframe the entire program as I've worked it myself, as I've made sense of it for myself, um, and give other people the opportunity to give it a try. And I say this all the time, but I'm by no means making the claim that this is the best alternative to the traditional approach, or this is the only way you can frame the 12 steps secularly. I'm sure there's an infinite number of ways that you could reframe and mold the program to meet somebody's individual needs. So, but this was how it made sense to me, one of the ways it made sense to me. And it just felt like there was a book ready to be written. And so I did. And I was fortunate that it was, uh, received pretty well.
When I was going through therapy, this became the focus of what we did every week for 3 or 4 months.
Huh.
So I know how I know how what you wrote appealed to me. How do you think it appeals to your audience? If you think about it, like I've got a book right here in my collection, a collection of alternate 12 steps, and for every one
Mhm.
version in there, there's 15 more, you know?
Mhm.
But yours has struck a chord with a whole lot of people. Why do you think that is? What is the appeal?
I am a very just logical, concrete thinker. And when I say logical, I don't mean that to imply that other people who think differently than me are illogical. I have to, it has to make sense to me. I have to be able to follow, okay, if this is doing this, why? I'm okay if I don't know, but I don't like explanations that aren't explained, or explanations that don't have, sort of empirical data, or some sort of logical reason that they work. So, um, I need to be able to follow point A to point B. Okay, if I do this, how is it impacting my behavior? Why does it work? How do we know it works? So, when I wrote my version of the steps, when I wrote my book, I just was important to me that it made sense, that I could follow the line of thought and I could follow the logic in everything that I was saying. And that was probably that to this day is the biggest compliment that I receive, the one that means the most to me, when people who've read my book say, I was reading it and it just made sense. I'm like, good, good. That's what I was going for. I don't want it to sound mystical. I don't want it to be vague. I want to really make it concrete and understandable. Like, I have a character trait that is undesirable. It's out of balance. I want to move it back into balance. So what do you do to change your behaviors? Well, you practice other behaviors, and how can so it had to make sense to me, you know, and I'm very sort of obsessive
Mm,
about the way that I analyze my own beliefs and about anything. You know, I'll be like, well, how do I know that this is true? So it's a little bit based off of my neuroses. Just like I don't like saying this is true because I get like self-conscious. Oh, well, how do I know that that's true? So I would just keep revisiting things that I said and things that I believed about the program or about my recovery. And I'd be like, okay, well, is this really what's happening? How do I know that this is what's happening? How do I know that this works? So, you know, just kind of the one little silver lining of my OCD is that it really makes it difficult for me to um, make bold, absolute claims unless I really have a strong understanding of why they're true for me.
mhm.
So, and that's still not to say I don't make mistakes and there couldn't be things that I could say more clearly. And, you know, there may be some leaps in logic that I make on occasion. That's just how the human brain is, and we're all prone to biases and stuff. But I try to think as rationally and clearly as possible about these things.
Awesome. Hey, it's Patrick checking back. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to bringing 2 more videos to you from Jeff. Once again, the book, Staying Sober Without God, and Jeff also has a website, practicallysane.org, focused on secular recovery and mental health. I will include a link for that as well. Enjoy your day and come on back. Thank you.